Anti-Misbach, the criminalization of people smuggling in Indonesia and Australia. John Lee, Japan, the Sustainable Society. Ken McLean, Crimes in Archival Form. Syed Irfan Ashraf, The Dark Side of News Fixing. Timothy M. Yang, A Medicated Empire.
I wish to congratulate every scholar who wrote the books that I, as part of the reading committee, had the pleasure to read, and thank them for participating in the International Convention of Asia Scholars 2023 Book Prize. I believe that writing a book, especially an academic one, is already a victory in itself. But many of the books that participated in this edition were presumably developed during a time, the pandemic, of exceptionally high vulnerability, uncertainty, and sufferance. So the achievement of this year is to be praised twice. Moreover, I particularly wish to congratulate all the young scholars and first-time book writers who shared their work with us. No matter the outcome of this prize, please be sure that your effort was very much appreciated. In the social sciences category, we received around 150 titles, both from experienced authors and first-time ones. The books explored an exceptionally vast and diverse range of topics, all relevant and interesting in their own way. What I really appreciated is the geographic diversity as well, with the biggest or more usually represented countries being there, as expected, but with a strong presence of countries which we have less often, unfortunately, the pleasure to read about. This diversity and the dialogue that this allows is the strength of ICAS and this book prize. And now the winning title, Japan, the Sustainable Society by John Lee. This is obviously a scholarly book, but it's also a book for common people to read. Provided that every world country and culture possess their own set of values to guide people towards meaningful ways of living, what the author proposes in this outstanding work is a picture of how, in a post-growth society, regular Japanese folks try to build a better future for themselves and those around them by growing everyday values inspired by sustainability. My deepest congratulations to John.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for mentioning the winner, John Lee, which I think is very much deserving of the award. We have a collection of books, over 100 of them. And as I went through the books, I was struck by this particular work. And what struck me was that it tried to do two things in a way that was flawless and particularly fascinating. So it strove to be scholarly, but at the same time, it also tried to be pragmatic and realistic in trying to deal or provide some kind of answers to what I think is the most pressing issue of our times: the environment, climate change, and the ways in which these are affecting our lives and existence on this earth. And what he did was to use his intimate knowledge of the history of Japan, Japan's modern trajectory as a society, to flesh out this question and to try to deal with it. And so you see in the work a nice historical sweep that looks at Japan from the era of the Bakumatsu, right down to the Showa period, in which the realities of modern Japan, as it tried to transform, is looked at. And as he looks at this question, the author points us to the limits, especially of blind capitalism, this almost rapacious idea that we could run a socioeconomic system globally on unending profits. And the book tells us, and in fact, to be more straight to the point, it warns us that we've reached a limit and that we need to turn a corner and quickly. And so in providing that warning, he gives us an idea of what we can do. And what I found fascinating was this idea that, all right, Japan, in a sense, bore all the marks of trying to modernize and all the mistakes, if you like, and all the problems. But within Japan also, there are signs of what the world probably can do. And so, for example, he looks at those who make sushi the traditional way, the fact that they are crafts based, the fact that it's about small is beautiful and all of that, you know. So this is a work that is magisterial in its scope. It is fascinating in its effect, and it is breathtaking in the ways in which it tries to provide us with ideas. So I would say congratulations to the winner. And I think that, as I said earlier, more than well deserved. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for the prize. I'm very surprised, and yet, of course, I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
John Lee, thank you so much for coming on to talk about your book, Japan, the Sustainable Society, The Artisanal Ethos, Ordinary Virtues, and Everyday Life in the Age of Limits, published in 2021 by University of California Press. Really pleased to be talking to you.
Thank you.
So congratulations again on winning the ICAST Book Prize in the Social Sciences category for 2023. Could you start by just introducing the book a little bit?
Sure. The book is really a response to the sense after the property speculation bubble burst in early 1990s that far from being number one, Japan was something of a basket case. And my take, I mean, in kind of this empirical instance, is that Japan is far from being a basket case, that it is a vibrant society, has many virtues that in the age of neoliberalism, I suppose, that people miss. Second, and I guess in some funny way, a deeper version of that is in our age of environmental crisis, it's very important to rethink the foundations of social sciences, such as the presumption of the virtues of economic growth, such as the idea that environment or nature is outside of human or social sciences. So I wanted to be able to combine these and other themes, and the result is the book.
How did you come to the topic of sustainability? You're a sociologist, and as I understand it, your earlier work wasn't explicitly about ecology or ecological crisis. How did you get interested in this, and how did you come to the
Well,
project?
I spent some of my youth in Japan when Japan was like the pollution capital of the world, Minamata, for example. And so I was alerted quite early to the peril of environmental disaster. And I think it doesn't take much imagination to think that we are headed in the wrong direction. And so I've had a very long standing interest in environmental and ecological issues.
You mentioned that Japan was once hailed as an economic miracle in the late 20th century, and only then it was sort of deflated by recession in the 1990s as it confronted various limits to growth. Why is that historical background important for understanding the story you're telling in this book?
Well, I suppose from the narrow ambit of Japan studies or Japanology, I mean, there's a sense in which Japan became, after World War II, an example of bad Japan. Why did it become militarist, fascist, to use a slightly problematic word? And in the era of rapid economic growth, Japan is number one. I also think people emphasize just one aspect and not necessarily the best aspect of Japanese political economy or society. And in the age of so called lost decades, lost 2 decades, 3 decades, when almost all economists agree that Japan was a horrible, horrible example. That in fact, there were real virtues to Japanese societies that people overlooked, not just for this time period, but also in the age of rapid economic growth, and I would dare to say in the militarist era in the 1930s and 40s. So I wanted to recover some of the virtues I thought of ordinary Japanese society.
Thank you again for sitting down and talking to me today. Again, the book is Japan, the Sustainable Society, the Artisanal Ethos, Ordinary Virtues, and Everyday Life in the Age of Limits, published in 2021 by University of California Press, and recently the winner of the ICAS Book Prize in the Social Sciences category, English Language Edition. John Lee, congratulations again. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.